Nearly blinded by the sun here in the Botany Bay National Park, but that's the lengths we'll go to bring you this. Jaguar's E-pace. This is a mid-range but fairly low spec model for $62,400. Like the rest of the Jaguars, it still has quite a lot of stuff in it, but most of the really cool stuff is an option, and expensive options at that. I'll put a list of some of the options in the article. And it's a shame that such a beautiful car doesn't have more stuff in it standard. Some of the things that are not in this car is digital radio, Apple CarPlay, but then that's not in any Jaguar. And other really cool things like adaptive suspension and drive modes, well, they're an option too. And I'll put the price of those in the article as well. But of course you still get the basic things that you get with all Jaguars. Fancy aluminium construction. Still, this weighs about 1,800 kilos and some change, and that's quite a bit of heft. The range has 5 engines from the ignominious range. Ingenuous range. Who? What now? Oh, sorry. Ingenium range. Ingenium range of engines, that's the one. Ingenium. Right, Ingenium. And this has a 9-speed auto, which can feel a bit dim-witted at times because, like most modern cars, this is trying to get into the highest possible gear as quickly as possible to use as little as fuel as possible. Jaguar says this gets a combined fuel consumption of 5.6 litres per 100 kilometres, but with mainly highway driving, this thing's sitting at about 7.7. I mean, that's not bad, but it's a long way from 5.6. I would imagine on a highway you'd probably get that 5.6 claimed fuel consumption. Because I'm a bit dim-witted and can't remember something from one minute to the next, I'm going to read some of the specs from this car. It's a 2-litre diesel engine. Remember, it's from the Ingenium range of engines with 132 kilowatts at 4,000 RPM. It does 430 Newton meters at a fairly low 1,750 RPM, and you really do notice that at takeoff. Really? Oh, shut up! It worked. 0 to 100 though is a fairly leisurely 9.3 seconds. And it is leisurely. But remember, this car weighs from 1,843 kilograms, which is quite a lot to be hauled around by a 2-litre engine. Here's some of the things that this car has in it. It has passive suspension. Now, passive suspension actually just means it doesn't have the fancy adaptive active suspension, what you and I would call shock absorbers and wishbone suspension. This car has LED headlights with signature daytime running lights, auto dimming, power fold heated door mirrors with approach lights, and the cute puddle lights with the mother and son Jaguars on it. I think that is just so cute. This also has a thing called summer tyres, which I presume you can't use in winter. 10-way electric folding seats with ebony grained leather light oyster stitch sports seats, an ebony interior, R-Dynamic branded leather steering wheel, auto dimming interior rear view mirror, and this car has a 5-star rating, so it has emergency braking, rear view camera, cruise control with speed limiter, drive condition monitor, lane keep assist, park assist and 360-degree parking aid, rear traffic monitor, and it also has a pyrometric alarm, so it looks after your pyrometrics. Navigation Pro, Pro services with Wi-Fi hotspot, 10-inch Touch Pro and Bluetooth connectivity. Now, a couple of the Jaguars we've had recently, the Bluetooth connectivity was great, but it simply wouldn't stream music. And Jaguar had promised me that with a flash upgrade of the system that it would all work. This one does work. I've been streaming music all day. In addition, this Jaguar has these 20-inch wheels for $2,740. It's a lot of money. The metallic Indus silver paint is an extra $1,370, and the ebony Morzine headlining is $400. The $62,400 base price of this car then increases to $66,910. because this is a fairly low spec car and doesn't have a whole lot in the way of costly options, there is no smart key entry. You have to get the key out of your pocket, unlock it with the fob, get in, and then press the push button start. I find that really annoying. I'd rather have them both or none at all. The other thing about this car is, like all of these kind of sports coupe style vehicles, even though it's an SUV and it's supposed to have more space inside it, it doesn't. So this is the XE sized SUV. So there's F-pace and E-pace, and the E-pace is the XE size car, F-pace is the XF size car. This sloping rear hatch cuts out this much space that it would have if the rear window was slightly more upright, and you really notice that inside. With the car configured so that it completely unlocks all of the doors, it's got two-stage unlocking, which is really annoying, so you need to click it twice in order to unload everything. There's even an option to take out the engine size badging, which I think is just bizarre. As you can see, this is an all-wheel drive. All E-paces are all-wheel drive, at least in Australia. You open up the manually operated tailgate, and the first thing you notice is this thing here is half of the parcel shelf inside, half of the parcel cover. There's the other half. The seats go down in a 60-40 split, and there's a fairly high parcel floor. Underneath is a space saver spare. There's a surprising amount of space back here. There's a good 4 or 5 centimeters of space between my knees and the seat in front, and my feet slip easily under the seat, which doesn't always happen. But the front seat is where it's at. It's got all the usual Jaguar instrumentation, but this doesn't have the fully electronic Jaguar dash. That's an option. When you start the car, the Jaguar symbol comes up eventually. Writes Jaguar, and while the system initializes, you get this great photo of the Jaguar. Now, this sideways Jaguar is called the Leaper. The one on the front is called the Growler, believe it or not. Push it to start, and here's the infotainment system. And of course, Sir William Lyons said that all Jaguars had to have space, grace and pace. And this has space, despite the slightly compromised rear parcel area. And it has lots of grace. And in fact, the parcel area is an example of grace that is form over function. Jaguar E-pace does feel premium, but does it feel luxury? Certainly not in the same way that the Range Rover we had last week, the Range Rover Velar, feels. That does feel luxurious. I do like Jaguar interiors, and I particularly like the inbuilt Jesus grip, because there isn't one above any of the doors, so your passenger's going to have to hold on for grim death. However, you won't be going much off-road in this, despite the fact that this is all-wheel drive and it is an SUV. It isn't an off-roader. The low-profile tyres do clunk over bumps a bit. Most of the time the ride is great, but for those rare times when you encounter a bump in the road, they do clunk a little bit, and there's quite a bit of noise in the cabin when it does. I would opt for higher profile tyres that offer a little bit more cushioning. Now that we've stopped, the stop-start has stopped. When I lift my foot off the brake, the stop-start will start. Imagine how much strain that's putting on your starter motor. Something that used to happen once a journey now happens every time you stop. That's an expensive fix. So with that extensive list of very expensive options, you could turn your $61,000 car into an $80,000 car without blinking. If you had $80,000, what would you buy? You could even add more than that. Just the leather option alone on one of the lower models of E-pace is $8,200. Have a look at the list. I'm going to rate E-pace at 7.5 out of 10. I adore the looks. And as much as I like that sloping rear window, it takes out far too much of the luggage space to be really practical. So it's taking some of the practicality of being an SUV away from the fact that it's an SUV. I like all the engines. I like the interior. But I don't like the list of options. I realise that's where they make their money, and they're trying to give you as many options as possible to personalise your car. But it does seem that you're having to pay for, in one of these cars, a lot more for what you're getting in an inexpensive car for the same money. I love the drive, I love the steering, I love the brakes, I love the handling. But as with most SUVs, I just can't understand why anybody would buy an SUV over the similar station wagon or sedan, given that it's going to handle better. But for people that want an SUV and you want a premium model, this is as good as any on the market. Don't forget, subscribe.